Welcome, viewers, to Silent Conversations with Ms. Nkatha. My name is Nkatha Mwenda, a nutritionist, founder of Sober Living Youth Summit, chairperson, Graceful Youth Recovery Center, and as a Academics Life Award honoree. They call me Dr. Nkatha Mwenda now. Wow, today I'm so happy to host a woman that I love and I honor. She's a sister, and we have walked a journey together. She's a lady who I heard of her story of resilience and overcoming after I had sent somebody to a rehabilitation center that she has co-founded. I was shocked and amazed to hear what she shared, and that is why we had to invite Beryl Ogutu, a founder of New Dawn Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, to the show to inspire us, to give us hope, and to let us know that there is no useless experience in life. Mm-hmm. God can get you out from the places that you never ever imagined you would get out from, and be running a certified rehabilitation center in its 8th year now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. My name is Beryl Ogutu. I am born again Christian, passionate about Christ and the kingdom. I'm an internationally certified addictions professional. I am also a clinical supervisor, a member of RIG East Africa. I'm also a pastor at World Reconciliation Ministry. And as you've heard from Katha, I founded and I'm the founder and co-director of New Dawn Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, which is going to click its 8th year in August of this year, 2024.
Wow. And how was your organization birthed?
Yeah, it's quite an amazing story because it was birthed when I was in rehab, and it was a journey that I was working with God to find out about myself, to find out my purpose, my calling, and who I am in God. And as I said, in a rehabilitation center, because that is where I found that it was best for me to be, so that I can be able to stay away from the mood-altering substances, for me to gain clarity, and also to seek professional help as pertaining to dealing with my condition.
What condition had you?
Substance use disorder, and I was also diagnosed with general anxiety disorder.
They say anxiety and mood disorders, there's a link maybe to childhood experiences. Did you go through anything when you were growing up? Or can you pinpoint where maybe that may have stemmed from?
Exactly. I grew up in a, I can say, emotionally volatile home environment, very dysfunctional family. My father was a consumer of alcohol, so as my mom. I grew around seeing my role models drinking alcohol. And sometimes they would have parties and invite their friends, and alcohol was normal. And apart from that, there was also abuse. My dad was physically violent towards my mom, which affected us so much. You can imagine hearing your mom screaming at the top of her voice while being beaten and crying out for help. And you're so young, you don't know how to assist your mother. Yeah. So we grew up, I and my siblings, we grew up very fearful. And we would get very anxious when we would hear our father. My father had a motorcycle, and he was an engineer. Yeah. When we would hear the sound of motorcycle coming, we would find the nearest place to hide, because we wouldn't know what was the mood of my dad. When we hear that he's not confrontational or he's not arguing with my mom, we'll come out of hiding. and we'll make sure we check his moods first before we relax. So we didn't know how my dad would react in any given situation, any given day. So we were constantly fearful. And that is where my anxiety started.
Wow. I mean, you know, I can just imagine as a child not understanding because you are imagining there should be love, some unity, and now you're seeing what you have just shared. And what happened after that? Did anything change?
Actually, things changed when my father died. My father died when I was 12 years old.
And that's when the violence stopped.
And that's when the violence stopped. I remember in his funeral, I was sad because we had lost a provider, but not a father.
Oh my.
Because I wasn't emotionally connected to my dad.
Even at that, as
At
a 12-year-old?
12-year-old. I would go to my friend's house and I would wonder why their father was very friendly to them. And for me, dysfunctional was functional.
Yes.
I saw my friends being free, laughing around their father holding them on their laps. And I would wonder, why isn't my father doing that? I actually thought that they were the ones who were dysfunctional. And for the longest time, being dysfunctional became my new normal. So after that, I would say I started experimenting on alcohol at a very tender age because it was around. And curiosity. You would wonder why people would drink alcohol and loosen up and laugh and everything. So I was very curious. I started experimenting on it, and to some extent, I got used to it. Now, because my dad died at 12 years old, we had some financial challenges because he was the sole provider. And because he was very insecure with my mom, he never gave my mother the opportunity for her to work. So my mom was left with the 5 of us and no job apart from the package she was given from my father's company to help her transition from the place we were staying to now our own place because the house was a company's house. So when I did my class 8, of which I was very brilliant, I will say, just as you've asked me about the anxiety, I dealt with that anxiety by trying my best to perform well in school. And I would explain why, because as I was a young girl, apart from the domestic violence, I also underwent rejection from one of my aunties. One of my aunties told me that I'm not the daughter of his brother. And that somehow made me start to believe, you're a young girl and you're wondering, why is this person telling me this? And it stuck in my mind. And when somebody says something, especially when it's negative, you'll start looking for validation around you to be able to help support whatever statement that person has made. So I started looking at how my mother was treating us. She would plate me the last one, and I would wonder why, because she did it when she's tired. So she would do me big cornrows. Unlike my sisters, when it came to our siblings, my parents going to Shago, they will pick 2 of each, and I was never picked. For some reason, I was the one who didn't go to our rural home until I was going to Form 1. All of them had an experience. So I felt rejected to some that is what I felt at that times. And sometimes it's you are told in counseling not to focus so much on the feelings, but to focus on what is the truth, the actual truth. At that time, that's what I felt. So I worked very hard in school. I did my things in an exceptional way so that I could be noticed by my parents. So I would clean by class 6, I was cleaning the clothes of everybody in the house. I was very responsible and I was performing very well.
Yeah.
So when I finished class 8, my mom could not provide for my school fees. I stayed home the first 2 terms. And at that time, we had moved out of the company's house to a house in high rise. So when I finished class 8, my mom didn't have money to take me to school. So I hung around the estate for the first 2 months. And that's how I started associating with the wrong company. And I was introduced to a jam session. At that time, people would go to New York or Florida, 2000, or Florida, Total.
So you'd go on a Sunday afternoon.
Yes, they imagine there were discos at that time. They would allow young people who are 14 years and above.
Jam session.
Yes, to just listen to music, and it was quite. I even asked myself a question: why they served us alcohol? Because alcohol was for sale. And that's where now I continued with my drinking. I remember the first time I went for the session, I drank. And I started smoking because my friend was smoking. So I will do it on the down low. That means when I will go for the jam sessions. But during the week, I was just the normal, very responsible girl. So when I went to high school, actually I found a sponsor from a teacher who really loved me. She went and looked for a sponsor and told her about my story. So I was sponsored and I was taken to school Uko in Eregi, St. Teresa's Eregi. When I did my Form 4, something unfortunate happened. When I was doing my KCP, my mom got sick. Actually, she got sick earlier, but they didn't tell me that she was sick. And she ended up dying. And after high school, Form 4. And I was so angry because after my father's death, we somehow bonded with my mom because of how responsible I was. She would leave me with tasks and responsibilities to do when she's away, and I will do them so well. So we somehow grew close. And for them not telling me, I saw them as enemies. So I became very angry and I rebelled. And rebellion for me meant doing the opposite of everything they told me. So I started drinking seriously, hanging with the wrong company. Okay. See the kind of people your grandmother says, because at that time I was living with my grandmother. The kind of people my grandmother says, don't hang out with that person. That person has no morals. Yes. The parents have not brought them in a good way. Those are the people I would hang out with. And by the time I was 19, I was arrested the first time. And I slept in a jail. Because we had come, we were from a drinking spree, and one of my friends insulted a GSU officer. So the GSU officer came with reinforcement and a pickup, and we were collected, and we were taken to the police station, and we slept overnight, and our bail was 500 shillings.
And you couldn't afford it?
No, actually we paid for it, and I went back home. So when I went back home, the mother to my boyfriend really quarreled me and said I'm the one who's spoiling her son, and it was the other way round, actually. Okay. He's the one who introduced me to Kuber, the tobacco that you put under your yes. So he introduced me to that, and the mother didn't know. So that is the time my family saw that I really needed help. Yeah. So they decided to sit down. At that time, my sister was in Maseno University, and you can imagine the kind of responsibility she was given to look after 4 of us. And she had nothing apart from the help money that she was being given by the government. So they suggested I go to stay with one of my uncles who was my favorite. So when I went to stay with my uncle, who was also a consumer of alcohol, and he quit alcohol when he got born again. He got born again and he just quit alcohol.
Yeah.
And after that, he became a testimony because even him, he was a serious consumer of alcohol.
Yeah.
And that is why I also believe in the spiritual aspect of
Amen.
addiction. And you can really get born again. And from that time, Jesus can touch you and you get completely
Amen.
delivered from addiction.
I slept drunkard. I remember 24th of December 2016. Woke up never to desire or to drink. Yet I had used for over 10 years. It had interfered with my life.
Exactly.
I was waking, sleeping, desiring just for that substance. So I also agree with you that divine intervention, it's possible.
It
so
is
that's what
very
happened
possible.
to your uncle.
Yes.
And it was an encouragement.
And it was an encouragement, but later on.
Okay.
So when I moved in with my uncle was single. Now when he got married and he was having like the three of us in his house. Obviously a young marriage and you're having outsiders.
Yes.
It somehow affected the relationship. So because I loved my uncle so much, I decided to go and live with my auntie in Kibera. That is where I also got involved with the wrong friends. So at that time, I'd gotten a scholarship again to go and study mass communication, a diploma in mass communication. So I went to school, but it was quite difficult because I was also going out to parties.
So
Sometimes
your drinking interfered
Yes,
with your academics.
Yes, my drinking interfered with my academics, and I somehow couldn't be. My relationship and my auntie was not so good.
Yeah.
So one day, as I was going home. When I went home, I found my auntie had locked me up, locked me out. I mean, she had locked me out. So as I was sitting, there was a bench next to the latrines. I sat there and it was completely dark. So one of the guys came and told me, when he was, after using the toilet, saw me and told me, "Young, what are you doing in the dark alone?" And I was like, "I'm waiting for my auntie." And he told me, "Come in. I show you where you can sit and wait for your auntie." So I was taken to a changa den. And they served me. Kaniambia, hey, you'll have to taste this. And that was my first taste of changa.
You're minding your business in
And
the
then
dark.
yes.
Then you're lured. It's not even lured.
Yes.
For you, I think you thought, oh, come and have a seat.
Exactly. So when I tasted it, it was so bitter, but it was something like, it's something I can get used to. But as for that, it wasn't my preference, because I was not at the stage where I was completely dependent on alcohol and drugs. My auntie also was a widow and she was going through her own issues. And on the other side, I was going to school, and also the drinking and the partying was not, was somehow interfering with our relationship. So I think I felt I needed my freedom. So my friend told me that since she was an orphan, she told me that if you continue staying with your auntie, you'll never make any progress in your life. Come, I show you how we live life out here. So I went to my auntie's place, packed, and I went to live with her at Yaya Center Apartments. And I was like, the first time I entered her house, my mouth, I was wowed. And I was like, oh my God.
Spacious, beautiful, nice location.
And he had a Mzungu boyfriend. And she had a very expensive phone and very many clothes. So I was just admiring her. And I was saying, hey, you've made it. Oh my God. And she told me, this can also be your life if you want it. So I stayed with her, and actually because we looked alike, she lied to the boyfriend that I was the sister.
Yes.
So they housed me for 2 weeks.
Yes.
They took me out, and the first time they took me out, they took me to Florida. 1,000, the Florida, uko Koinange Street. And
that one didn't have jam session when you were growing up.
No, they
you were
did.
Going to the other one.
They did, but I didn't go there. So I got a shock, it was a shock for
Yes.
me how the women were dressed, but I really did not know that I was going towards that direction.
Oh my.
So after the 2 weeks, I was taken to a friend of my friends, and I was told, you guys take care of her and show her how life is lived.
Yes.
So she gave them some money. I was taken to Ngara. I did some shopping. That was the first time I ever put on a weave on my head. I was
You were being groomed into something.
yes. So I was bought these short skirts and everything. And my hair was made and high heels. And I was taken out for the first time. And when I went, I didn't know what exactly was going on.
Yes.
But I saw my friends go and come back, go and come back. So I was wondering what is happening. So later on is when I came to understand that actually what was happening is, yeah.
We call it has a name.
Exactly. But I thank God that for some reason, I don't know if you are called by God and chosen and you have a mark for his work, he somehow protects you. So for some reason, I would get men who would have pity on me so much, and they will just keep me. And
So you became a sex worker.
yes, to some extent. To some extent, I did. And I did that, one, because I needed money to live, and two, because I also wanted to, what can I say? At that point also, I had started drinking. You know, the freedom, I also needed money for the alcohol.
To fund the
The
lifestyle.
lifestyle. And also because I knew where I was from, despite our family being dysfunctional. I grew up in a Christian, we were brought up in a Christian house. My dad was a Catholic, my mom an Anglican. I went to Bible studies when I was a young girl, camps, biblical camps and everything. So I knew what I was doing was wrong. So what I did is I would drink the shame and the guilt away. Drink to
Drink to
in a silly way.
Drink to forget.
To forget what I'm doing. And at that moment, I moved from drinking the soft drinks and I moved to the beers. Now I started drinking the And I remember the first time I was so picky. I was saying I can't drink this and this and this.
But now you've become...
But at that time, I wasn't really picky. I started experimenting on other alcohols, especially the cheap ones. So I did that. So the more I drank to drink away the shame and the guilt away, the more I became addicted.
Yes.
I moved from the initial use to the point of abuse. Abuse is using alcohol. You can use alcohol. Yes, we say there are social drinkers out there, but you know there are limits where if you pass those limits, you are said to abuse the alcohol, because a person is supposed to take 3/4 of a bottle of beer, that is 500 ml, something like 400 ml, within an hour. A glass of wine that is not full for an hour, and a tot of either gin or whiskey for an hour, for your liver to be able to
function.
Not to function.
Yeah, to detoxify.
Break down
break
the alcohol in a natural way.
I want you to note this is what they use, the kind of measures. There's no safe, as we speak now, the current research, there's no safe amount of alcohol.
Exactly.
But there's a way they use so that they can be able to say this is abuse.
Exactly.
So that's what you had gotten into.
So I would say that if somebody is drinking 3 beers, 4 beers in an hour, that is already abuse.
Yeah.
If somebody is taking like 4 glasses, 5 glasses within an hour, already they're overworking the liver. okay?
Yeah.
If somebody is taking a quarter of whiskey within an hour, they're already abusing. They've reached that
Yes.
threshold of saying that they are abusing the alcohol or substance.
And I just want it to be clear, because, we are living in a culture where alcohol has been normalized. And I like the way she's quantifying it, because there are people who will brag about the amount of alcohol they drink in one sitting. And you find already that is abuse. They are overworking the liver. They are exposing themselves to a lot of harm.
Exactly.
So it's a good guideline to know,
Exactly.
as you have shared.
Exactly.
So you started abusing the alcohol?
I moved from abuse.
Yeah.
Now I went to the tolerance level, the tolerance stage. That is, you take a larger amount of the substance to give you the desired effect. So you find there's a time I will drink 2 beers to get high. But it reaches a point where the 2 beers are not enough. I have to drink 3. I
Yes,
have to
that
drink
is
4.
tolerance.
So it reached a point that the beers were not making me high. So I had to take spirits first before I go and take the beers for me to get high. So the tolerance had increased. So I moved to taking the spirits to the gins, and those times they were not as bad as these days, because these days they're mixed with other chemicals that really affect the body and the liver. They affect the liver and the organs. So I moved to you are moving down the alcohol levels.
You can see it's just
Even
going
the
less.
the crowd that you hang around with changes.
Yeah.
Because the people you will drink with, the high class alcohol, when you start drinking this cheap and you misbehave, because I'll find myself so drunk that I will not be able to do anything. So I vomit, scream, do all these sort of things. So people started moving away from me. And because you also want to feel good about yourself, you will go to a place where people will see you as the
Celebrated
goat.
one.
Yes, the goat.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I go to a den and I'm the one who's speaking English and everything, people see me as the goat. So I moved down and I started now, even I reached a level of drinking Moratina. And the Moratina, you have to know that the ones they were using, it is, yani we would drink, and in the morning we'll find, na tunakunywa mpaka inaisha, and in the morning you'll find another Moratina that has been made.
Ready for
use. And they would use, and I came to later find out that they use formalin.
Oh, no.
The chemical used to preserving dead bodies to
They'd
fasten.
They'd put it in the Moratina.
Yes, to fasten
That's
the
why
process.
we are talking about adulterated alcohol.
Exactly.
Because they're mixing so many things. And the intention is to get you high.
Exactly.
In smaller quantities or what?
Not even in smaller quantities. They want to sell and get profit. Are we together? Yeah. The normal process of making Moratina is, it takes days.
So they fasten the process.
So it's like a catalyst.
Yes.
The way you were taught in chemistry.
Yes.
It's like a catalyst.
It
fastens, it speeds up the process of the Moratina. So the person who sold us Moratina, and I don't know why we didn't have eyes, actually had very swollen legs. Actually, we used to call him elephant legs, elephant man. Because he had drunk the Moratina to the extent that he couldn't move. The liver, actually right now is when I'm realizing that the liver was collapsing. And he actually died.
Because now you know because of the symptoms.
Exactly. He actually died. At that point, I was with my friends, but I was no longer hanging around the crowd I started with. In the initial stages. Now I had new friends.
What are the highlights of that time? Because I know we cannot cover everything. But what are the highlights? What happened when you were in the dens?
When I was in the dens, that's when I got introduced to bang. That's when I started using guara. That is when I started using, got reintroduced to using Kuber.
Oh my.
That is when I drank jet fuel.
You did?
Yes.
Oh Lord.
So those are the highlights of everything. Now, that is the time I would have serious withdrawals, because it reaches a point you move from the tolerance level to the dependence. My body was physically dependent on the substances and psychologically dependent. So when I don't drink, there's some adverse reactions. So I would either shake violently, I would feel like there are spiders crawling over my body, I would have insomnia, I would vomit, diarrhea. It was just a very bad experience. Now, you'll do that for 1-2 days, because there are days when you'll tell yourself, me, I want to quit. Because you look at your life and you say, there's something wrong. Because me, at some point, I asked myself, what is wrong with me? That I can't stop drinking, that I can't stop using. So I would force myself to not take the drugs. There were moments of forced abstinence. And then after the second day, you find you can't manage. Because now is the time, now you start thinking about your life and where you are at. And the guilt and the shame starts setting in. Now, what do? You go and look for the alcohol for you to deal with the guilt and the shame, and for you to get high. So actually, that is the point I completely became dependent, and I moved to the stage of addiction. So after that, I moved in with my sister, and I will fast forward because my story is very long. I moved in with my sister, and I became the same. After some time, she noticed that I'm actually an alcoholic, but she did not know. At that time, there wasn't so much sensitization on the issues of there's something wrong. Because even her, she stopped giving me an allowance. So, yes. So when she noticed that I have a problem, she stopped giving me an allowance. And now me, at that point, we had moved. Actually, the highlight of that moment, my sister discovering that I am an alcoholic, is when we were moving, she found a mountain of bottles, this second generation alcohol in the house. So when we moved to Dawn home, and because my sister wasn't giving me money, I moved to the ghettos. And in the ghettos, I became a barmaid. There's nothing that I didn't do. Actually, I was a girlfriend to a Mungiki leader for protection. And in 2007, I would bounce in the corridors of the Sinai Paradise, ghetto, Mukuru kwa Ruben. I would bounce and nobody will touch me because of my boyfriend.
Oh my goodness.
And that was my first experience. Before I got that boyfriend, actually there was an attempt, people made, they schemed. After I'd left my work, people schemed to rape me. And I was saved by some of the Maasais. Yes.
So we are talking about street life.
Street life. Now I'd gotten to the street life, to living in the ghettos. That is where I was. Yani, you're paid. Actually, the person at the counter was being paid 150. The barmaids were being paid 100 shillings. So I started as the manager of the bars, but I was too much of an alcoholic to even manage. So I was put at the counter, too much of an alcoholic, because I would drink the alcohol while selling it. So they had a lot of inaitwangaje shortage. And they would slash it from my salary, but I became a barmaid.
Oh my.
So one day they schemed and they did not succeed. And in the process of me doing my work, I met one of the Mungiki people and decided I would date him because it's for security purposes.
Okay. So how long were you in that
actually,
neighborhood? And
it was 2007 when there was post-election violence. Actually, I was so deep into addiction, I didn't even notice there was post-election violence.
When was rock bottom? Because you've taken us through the stages of the progressive disease,
Okay.
experimentation. You were a young girl. You got into acting. You were using. Then your tolerance became high. You became dependent. Now you are addicted. You will do anything for this drink. When did you hit rock bottom? When was the turnaround?
Actually, the first time I went to rehab, I had hit my bottom, rock bottom, and I would say it's because I was asking myself a question. There's questions that you keep on asking yourself. Why am I not able to quit using? Why is my life like this? You know, there are questions you would ask yourself the moment you are left alone to do reflective thinking, because you'll find in between your drinking, you'll have sober moments where you're going through very serious withdrawals, and you will think, why do I have to, why is all this happening to me? And I remember the first time I got confronted about the whole issue. I told my family, and that is my sister, that I could not stop drinking, that I had to drink every day. In fact, I'd tried drinking so many times, and I couldn't stop. And one of the days I really wanted to stop drinking was the day I was raped by a friend of mine. And it was a very traumatic event for me. I remember that at that time, I really asked myself if there was anybody who would believe that I was raped, given the fact that mimi ni mlevi wa mtaa. I am seen everywhere drunk.
But
So
violation is violation.
Violation is violation. And I couldn't share it with anybody. What I did is that after the incidents, I went back home. I had some time to myself, and I thought about the event. What I did next was go to the bar and drink. So the first time I thought about quitting completely was that time. Then the second time was when I was confronted by my sister, and I said, I have a problem. So I went to rehab the first time in 2008, but I thought I did the program, and I discovered there was a lot of things that I really needed to work on. So in 2009, I started abusing prescription medication. At that time, I was a recovery coach. I was trained in helping people who are in addiction, especially people who need help to be a link up from them transitioning to the addiction to the point of getting the help. So I started abusing prescription medication for quite a long time, which led to a series of very many relapses, and I ended up going to 6 treatment facilities.
You get out, or you get into rehab. You stop abusing alcohol.
Yes.
But in the process, then you become a recovery coach. You get into the treatment centers.
Actually,
as someone who's working there.
Actually, I went and trained to become a professional addictions professional.
Yes, and then you went and got a job in the facilities.
Treatment facilities.
And that's where you picked up the opioids.
Yes.
I just wanted to make... So now it was not alcohol
It
anymore.
wasn't alcohol.
It wasn't all those cuberas and all those other drugs. It was... You picked a new substance.
And it's because I needed to use something that nobody would notice I was using. And it was because of also a trauma I underwent. I lost a client, and that time there was no supervision, no debriefing. I had to deal with it, and I was a very young girl. I was 23. So you can imagine that kind of burden that I had, that trauma. So I started abusing diazepam. I moved to amitriptyline. By the time I knew, actually doing my diploma, I was still abusing prescription medication.
Did you ever feel guilty?
Yes, I did.
Because
yes.
you're here as a recovery coach, but you're popping pills.
I'm popping pills, and actually I did very well in my school.
Yeah.
Because it hadn't reached that point that I was dependent on them. I had to take them morning and evening. No, I only took them at night when I wanted to sleep. But it became a problem. You know, cross addiction. You use something different to help you deal with that craving, but it is still the same disease. It's a chronic relapsing brain disease.
Yeah, it's a relapse.
And there are very many expressions of addictions. There are people who will turn to work. There are people who will use alcohol. There are people who will turn to codependent relationships. There are people who will become gambling. Yes. So me, I did prescription medication for some time. Then I moved to my drug of choice, which is alcohol. By that time, I'd become a tornado. I was wreaking havoc everywhere I was going. My family had exhausted their money, especially my sister, my big sister.
She never tired.
Yes, she never tired, and she always kept on reminding me that she knows who I really am, because she knew me and she knew what I was capable of. I was a go-getter, a very brilliant girl when it comes to academics, a good public speaker. Actually, I participated in the Queen Elizabeth debate battle.
Wow.
And was the only black girl out of all the representatives of Kenya.
Yeah.
And that was an achievement for me. I was good in dancing. I was actually good in all things.
So she's the one who kept reminding you what happened to you.
Exactly.
But I still cheer you on, and I'm concerned with your drinking.
Actually, yes.
And your drug use.
So the last bit, she actually lost hope completely, and my small sister is the one who had to make an intervention, and that is after I'd completely gone down, hit rock bottom. You asked when I'd hit bottom. That I hit bottom the first time, but this time it was lower than that, because that was after I was raped.
Lower than hell.
Exactly. I was gang raped, and I lost hope completely.
What?
Yes, and I told myself, what am I living for? I don't know whether I've contracted any disease. I don't know what it actually took me to another lower level of low. Okay? I was completely hopeless, and I didn't have any reason to live. Actually, I was drinking to die. But my family, through friends that I'd made in Pipeline, actually, I stayed in the streets of Pipeline for 6 months. And it was not until I had a house, no. I was living in the bars, showering in the toilets. And it reached a point I was so sick that they couldn't allow me to sleep in their lodgings. Because I'm a lovable person, very social. So the bar maids and the bar tenders will allow me to go to the lodgings to sleep,
but
to
now
sleep off the alcohol.
Sickness, they couldn't.
Because of the sickness, they thought I would die, and nobody wanted a police case, because some of them were operating illegal bars with no licenses.
So when did you get better?
When did I get better? My family picked me up from Pipeline. I went to Coptic Hospital. My first time I had hope is when I was seen by a psychologist, and she told me that I had pneumonia. They were treating me for alcohol withdrawal syndrome, and they also told me I'm completely clean. Not to stigmatize, but I'm HIV negative.
Because of all the gang
exactly,
rapes and the extremes,
yes, because exactly,
even the work that you had gotten into briefly. Okay.
Yes, so I completely lost hope, and I'd lost count, because I didn't care who I was going home with.
Oh my!
Because I was doing it to die. So when she told me that, I was like, "What? Are you serious?" Because I thought
you thought you were sick. You thought your lungs.
I thought I was sick. Actually, when I got sick, I thought that was part of the sickness.
Oh my goodness.
So when she told me that, I was like, what? Okay, that was the first moment I had a glimpse of hope. Then the second time is when I had a spiritual experience where I actually I saw the angel of death. It came to my bed. People who are spiritual will understand this. It was a dream, sort of like a vision. I saw a very black image, and it was tall, and it stood in front of my bed. I don't know whether you have ever stared into darkness. There is darkness that is when you move away from a place of light, and there's that darkness that is not darkness. But there is that darkness that God spoke, let there be light, and light separated itself from darkness. I'm talking about that kind of darkness. And I knew it was after my life. And for some reason, that dark force moved to the next bed. And that lady, when I woke up in the morning, she was taken to ICU, and later on she died.
Oh, my.
So that was also...
for me, I can relate because I have seen, not
Exactly.
personally, but I have had visions or seen situations in hospitals, and you can see.
Exactly.
I used to work in that setup for some time, and I would see, and then the next day you go to work and you find the trolley, there's a carved trolley for the morgue. So I hear you, I can relate. So this, it passed you by, literally.
Exactly, it passed me by. And for me, I knew that God had saved my life and given me another chance.
Wow.
So I stopped. I used to ask myself, why is God allowing me to go through all these things? Why isn't he there for me? You know, even especially after I was gang raped, I asked God, even when I'm in the lowest of my low, something like this happens to me. Where are you? But when I left that hospital, I started asking myself, who is this God that has protected me through everything that I've gone through?
Okay.
So I went to rehab, yes, with one goal of searching for this God and getting some answers answered, some questions answered. Because I had a lot of questions to ask God. But I knew I needed a place where I would be away from alcohol and drugs, a place that has the support. And that's why I provide services, the rehabilitation center. I believe that people who suffer from alcohol, substance use disorder, they need to be taken to a controlled environment where it's serene, supportive for them to get the professional help they need. So I went to a treatment center, and I received that support, and there were no drugs, and I got time to do the program and also go through my own spiritual journey. Actually, the first 2 years of my life, I was mentored by the Holy Spirit, I would say, because when I got into that point of God answering my questions through the scriptures, I came to find my identity in Christ. Because at some point in my life, I went through so much abuse, imagine so much domestic abuse, and there's nothing as bad as having an abuser who calls you names and tells you you are nothing, you'll amount to nothing, nobody wants you, even your people don't want you. Because you know, when you withstand a beating like that and you still stick to that person feels that you really need them. So they can do whatever they want with you. So I had all those things imprinted in my mind. I had belief, my belief system was completely wrong. My thinking was completely wrong. So God went through a process of sanitizing my thinking.
Okay.
I got to a point of understanding who I am, who created me. I started calling myself those names, that I am beautifully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and those words, exactly.
Yes, as you said,
yes, exactly. Yes. Fearfully and wonderfully made. I am chosen. I am the beloved of God, you know. And I started, the Holy Spirit started taking me through a journey of self-discovery as I was also going through the program. So it was a concurrent thing. And that is the time I gave my life to Christ, I would say. And I wasn't led to Christ by no one. It was a conviction. The Holy Spirit, I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit, and I fell to the floor and I really cried and I gave my life to Christ. And after that, as I was continue seeking God, God gave me the blueprint to a treatment center.
Yeah.
And he told me that he wants me to open a rehabilitation center. When I was writing my vision on a book, I didn't have an idea where the finances was going to come.
Wow.
I didn't have an idea what God was going to do. But when God tells you he's going to do something, he does it. He's not a man to lie, nor a son of man to repent. So God told me to draw out my vision. And I did. I wrote the beds that I need, TV, what and what. I described the kind of environment that I needed for my rehabilitation center. So fast forward, I finished my treatment. It was quite unfortunate that the person who really sponsored my treatment passed on, my big sister. She passed on. She never got to see me sober, but we made amends when I was in rehab. I thank God for that. And I worked for 1 year, and after 1 year exactly, God gave me the resources to start New Dawn Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, of which I have a good friend of mine, and also a mentor, a sponsor. He's called Job Givinji, and we run the center together, and we've been doing it for the past now since 2017.
Yeah.
New Dawn has been able to rehabilitate almost over 300 people.
Wonderful.
And we have been able to incorporate spirituality into the program, where you are a spiritual being. And when you're disconnected to your God, then there are some consequences. So we also emphasize on that. We are a Christian-based organization, because if it wasn't also for me getting to understand myself in God and in Christ Jesus, I wouldn't be where I am today. Actually, I'd gone to rehab so many times. I reached a point I was asking, why is treatment not working out for me? Because I do everything. I was the model client, the one who cooperates and attends all sessions. But yet when I get out, for some reason I still have that craving. I came to understand why Jesus is called the living waters, and why he's called the bread of life. I came to understand that when you drink from him, you will never thirst.
Amen.
That is when the thirst ended. The craving ended.
Yeah.
Immediately when Jesus entered into my life, that is when my life was transformed and changed.
Wow.
So we are still soldiering on, and I'm not ashamed to speak about Jesus in the mental health spaces, because people have different recovery paths. And it is also one of the basic principles of effective treatment, that everyone has their own recovery path.
There's no set path.
There's no set path.
There are diverse ways you
Exactly.
can get to.
Everybody is unique. But what I've done is that I've incorporated spirituality in New Dawn, where they have what we call the walk of faith. And they get to ask all the questions that they need to ask about God, and finding out about who they are in God, getting to get an identity in God. And I thank God that we have been able to do that and transform very many lives.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, what an amazing testimony, because, maybe even you as a viewer, are you picturing, she mentioned pipeline, not pipeline, what do you remember pipeline?
Pipeline, no.
We're talking about a low-income settlement,
Exactly.
a slum area,
Exactly.
gang raped, at one point had to be a sex worker, had been through adverse childhood experiences, traumatic abandonment as an orphaned girl along the way. But what stands out is you had people who did not forget you.
Yes.
And God sent helpers.
Exactly.
And today, she is able to walk the journey with clients.
Exactly.
You call them sons and
I
daughters.
call them sons and daughters
Yes.
because everybody who walks to New Dawn, I just don't look at them as clients.
Yeah.
They are sons and daughters given to me by God. Because God said that my sons will come from afar and my daughters will be nursed by my
Your
side.
side, Isaiah.
So
Luke
I
60.
treat them as my sons and daughters.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And that is actually the center where we refer our clients, those who reach out to us, as we are opening our center in a month or two's time, so that you can be able to be nursed back to health. Addiction is a disease. I won't speak on that because it's already been elaborated by our guest Beryl, and I can't even try to imagine how it felt. You know, when you say gang rape, I can imagine so many people.
Exactly.
When you're talking about the dens, but look at you today. You don't even look an inch of whatever it is you have
Exactly.
spoken about. What is true is that you have a soft spot. You're a likable person. You're saying you used to gain favor. Well,
Yes.
I think you also have that presence. And,
Oh.
and I mean, God is done so much on you and continues to use you as a light and a beacon of hope in society. So viewers, you heard it from Beryl. She was in a far place. If I can say trenches, then that would be the right description. But look at her. She's out sober and advocating for sober living and also offering recovery solutions
For men and women.
for men and for women. And it is a holistic
We use the holistic approach.
and they put Christ at the center of it all. What she hasn't mentioned is even as they are a Christian establishment, they receive people from far and wide. They have had people who are from diverse religions. So religion is not a barrier. In fact, some come and they are amazed at the Christian principles
Exactly.
and the love and the journey, like you called it. It is the journey is called
Walk of faith.
Walk of faith.
What I'll say, one is to not be ashamed to come out and say you have a problem, because one of the steps of getting the solution to your problem is first saying you have a problem. So substance abuse is a disease. It is a disease. It is something that is manageable. I was in it and I was out, and I want to speak specifically to women because women are affected, and because of the stigma, they do not come out and say that I have a drinking problem because of how women are placed in the society. Women are meant to be strong. They are meant to be the ones who instill morals in their children. They are meant to be the backbone of the family. And when they come out, most of the time people see it as a moral failing, or people see it as something to do with they have fallen short. But to say the truth is that even women go through a lot of challenges, and they are categorized as the special needs group. And that is why at New Dawn Treatment Centers, we have specifically assigned spaces for women. Whether they are there or not, those spaces are for women because we understand that also women go through the challenge of substance use disorder. So New Dawn Treatment Center, we are located at Ongata Rongai off Magadi Road, a place called Acacia. The numbers that you can use to reach us are 0705 313 670. That is my official line. You can also find us on Facebook, New Dawn Treatment and Rehabilitation Center. Our website is www.newdawn.co.ke. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, even for giving of your time and sharing your testimony. And I know many will be nursed, many will be nourished by what you have shared. Viewers, we are also on social media. We are in Instagram as Ms. Katha Mwenda, Graceful Youth Recovery Center. On X, Ms. Nkatha Mwenda, Graceful Youth, and on Facebook we are Miss Nkatha Mwenda and Graceful Youth Recovery Center. And you're here on Silent Conversations. Please subscribe, hit like, share, comment.